Governor Greg Gianforte's office has confirmed he vetoed another 22 bills last week. MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Ambarian takes a closer look at some of the policy statements he made and some where the decision came down to the budget.
As of Tuesday, Governor Greg Gianforte has vetoed 28 bills from this year's legislative session. That's the most he's rejected from a single legislative session since becoming governor in 2021. And there's still about 24 bills he has to take action on. Two of the bills Gianforte vetoed were intended to require more transparency from branches of government. One would have narrowed executive privilege that allows the governor to withhold information from a public records request. Another would have made the Montana Supreme Court's deliberations public once they reached a final decision. In his veto letters, Gianforte said both bills upset the separation of powers by limiting the executive and the judiciary, but not the legislature. The governor vetoed House Bill 605, which would have expanded when jails can strip search inmates, but was watered down during the legislative process. And Senate Bill 7, which would have reversed a change from last session and allowed sheriff's deputies and highway patrol troopers to take their pensions earlier. For around a third of the bills Gianforte has vetoed, he specifically pointed to concerns about their price tag, like for one that put $5 million into a grant program for firefighter training facilities. So far, the bills he's blocked have included an estimated total of almost $28 million in one-time spending, and another roughly $13 million in annual expenses. 8 of the overturned bills had support from more than 2/3 of the House and Senate, enough to overturn a veto. That means that for those bills, there will have to be a poll by mail to see if lawmakers want to enact them into law over Gianforte's vetoes. The first 2 of those ballots went out to lawmakers earlier this month. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
A controversial bill dealing with fire service in the consolidated government of Butte-Silver Bow County has been vetoed by Gianforte after bipartisan support carried it through the Montana legislature. In a letter to Montana Speaker of the House, the governor says he's vetoing the bill because it introduces instability into the operations of rural fire districts. He also says volunteer and paid firefighters should sit down and work together to resolve issues instead of, quote, having the state of Montana take a meat cleaver to rural fire protection, end quote. In response to the governor's veto, Butte Senator Derek Harvey, the sponsor of House Bill 547, says the bill was intended to return control of fire services to the fire services director and that he still feels that state law needs to be changed, but he hopes they can take steps in the right direction prior to the 2027 session. Vetoes can be overridden by 2/3 majority votes in the House and Senate, but Senator Harvey says he's not pushing for that vote. A new Montana law limits what flags can be flown on government property or at public schools. House Bill A-19 was sponsored by Republican Braxton Mitchell of Columbia Falls. It restricts any flags that, quote, represent a political party, race, sexual orientation, gender, or political ideology. The law effectively bans the flying of pride flags and other LGBTQ flags from being flown at schools or government buildings. Language in the bill does allow flags like the Gadsden flag and the Confederate flag to be flown, and flags for law enforcement officer and fallen officers. HB 819 went into effect immediately after Governor Greg Gianforte signed it.